That seems fine. Ba-da-ba-ba. Hey, welcome. If you're just scrolling by, just trying to fix my stream setup tonight. Looks like we're in good shape. Tweak a few things. TikTok says I'm live, so that looks good. Am I? Yeah. Okay, I think we're good. Okay, come on. Here we go. Hey, King Jason. All right, let's see what the stream delay looks like. 1, 2, 3. Oh, 3 seconds isn't bad. Drop frames are minimal. Man, it's not gonna stay on too late tonight. Hey, welcome NGV. I just tinkering with my streaming setup here. Trying to get stuff dialed in. Now that I'm all set up to stream, it's kind of all I want to do. Let's see if I can find the... There we are. Find the editor where we were working on this last night. Yeah, that looks fine. I had OBS all dialed in. Everything just perfect. Exactly where I wanted it. Then I updated OBS. And yeah, all my plugins stopped working. So that's that. Close that door, please. All right. I should throw some text up on the screen, I guess. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. So folks know what I'm doing. Leave it at that. I know that could be fancier. I'm kind of over fussing with OBS tweaking and setups and getting prepared to stream and do the whole streaming thing it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. So we'll just stream for a little bit tonight. I'm using this as an excuse to get some work done on my startup. Let's have a look at that. Actually, I got to go back to GitHub because my brother... So we're working on this startup. My startup's called PreFlight. The whole idea is that we're testing. We're doing automated AI testing. So if you have an assistant or if you have like, say, like a voice flow or even like an API, any kind of audit, if you have like a make.com or something like that, then, you know, in good fashion, just like anything else, testing is the last thing that people think about. But if you want something to work, you need to test it. You need to know that it works 100% of the time or as close to 100% of the time as possible. And so what could be less 100% of the time then AI. So that's kind of what we're working on. It doesn't make your AI necessarily better, but it helps you manage that iterative process where you're doing cycles. You're like, all right, we're like, I know we need to retest this set of prompts. And if you're building really basic, really super basic, say like a chatbot or something like that, or super basic automation, you can just manually test it a couple times, and it's not the end of the world. But if your automations start to get a little bit more complex, and you've got a lot of like conditions, like logic, like if it does this, then make sure this is the output. And if it's this scenario, make sure it's this. And if it's this, then make sure it's this. When you got a lot of those, it's really tedious to manually test that all the time. So that's what we're trying to approach here is dial that in. So work with me here. My brother left some comments on my pull request a few days ago. We're just going to work through that. Feel free to stick around or not. I'm just using live streaming as an excuse to actually spend time working on this. Because, man, we're so close. I'm so close to launching this. We started on this in, what does the code say? I opened this particular pull request on November 2nd. That's how bad. This is almost 2 months old. That's how startups are when you're busy. It's kind of like, I got this really great idea for a product. I want to get it out there, but I'm not going to work on it for 2 months because I got too much other crap going on. Okay, so let's get through these comments. So yeah, my brother's being diligent here. Thankfully. I'm just going to stretch this out so we can see it. Yeah, that's fine. All right, between this promise and the one above, can you please pick the one you prefer and make them both the same? I don't personally have a strong preference either way, he says. As Lade said, why not agentify the process probably as accurate as you can get for fetching information? Can you elaborate on that a bit? Agentify the process of, are you talking about my pull request, or are you talking about testing your workflows? All right, let's get into this. Switch back to my, let's see, close out a few. It's been so long since I've been in this code, I'm not even sure what it looks like anymore sometimes. I mean, it's only been 2 months, but still. So the code was backend.db. Let's just go have a look at that. Yeah, that's the one, and it's right around 400, he said. And he's saying, between this promise and the one above. So as Lade says, sure, for testing workflows, I also have a startup. Built some chatbot for pass. Yeah, I mean, I suppose you could. I suppose you could build out an agent that's like, test these workflows, make sure that they, or, test this chatbot. But I mean, it's really the same thing, isn't it? Let me jump into an example. This is a poor example. Let's actually just go build one together. I'll give you an idea what I'm talking about. So this is sort of this is a bad example of the interface. We'll jump into this test. And all tests, so this whole platform starts with the idea of this suite is tied to an assistant. As Lade says, we're using fetch and building agents from scratch for people querying their documentation. Yeah, so, and that's fine, but how are you, once you build that agent and you query that documentation, if that agent or chatbot or whatever gives back the wrong information, what do? You go and you tweak that prompt, right? And then you retest it. You're testing it manually, like you're checking it, right? If you're not checking it, it's probably going to be a bad time for your clients. Because you want it to be good. You want it to provide the right information, correct? So what I'm saying is, when your chatbots or your agents or your workflows get more advanced, how are you testing them? How are you making sure that if you go in and tweak something, all of the different scenarios that's supposed to handle, especially if it's a chatbot, right? Like, so I'm building chatbots for car dealers. And so there's a lot of moving parts. You know, it's not just a really simple RAG query hitting some documentation. It's like way more advanced than that. We have workflows that are like, let's look up based on like, here's some search parameters, find some vehicles. Here's some search parameters, but they've specified a price range. This is a different query. Here's a search parameter, but it's specific to a vehicle or to a maker model. Here's a specific price, right? There's so many different workflows. And then there are parts of the workflow where if the user says certain things, we want the workflow to trigger a real person to step in. And the thing about it is there's no wiggle room. If you're building out solutions for a car dealer, there's no wiggle room. There's no room for mistakes. Because if it doesn't work, then they just stop paying you. Right? There's no real chance to like be like, oops, that didn't work so great. Let's see if we can fix it. It's like it's got to work good. It's got to give. If your chat bot gives the wrong price, the dealer, there's consequences on their end, right? Like financial and legal. So it has to be right. And so if you're tweaking and adjusting that bot or whatever, how do you be, if you've got 25 different things that you're checking for on that chatbot, how do you make sure it's right all the time? How do you make sure it's giving back the correct information all the time? So, I mean, you could write an agentic workflow to do that, but that's sort of what we're doing here. So the idea that, did I not give you time? Oh, okay. I'll fix that. So the idea, we'll just build one of these together real quick. So yeah, so as Lade says, please correct me if I'm wrong. You're building AI for test cases in tougher schematics, basically more advanced scenarios, right? Where we need the bot to be deterministic, where the workflows are advanced. It's like if you're just throwing some documentation into a like voice flow and just doing a real simple RAG query, yeah, whatever. I wouldn't test that. But if you have conditional logic in your workflow, like if this happens, it needs to do this. If this other thing happens, it needs to do this. If this scenario comes up or the user mentions this, then alert somebody, right? And it has to do that every time. You want to get closer and closer and closer to the whatever AI system you're building. You want it to do that every single time. And so if you've got all of these scenarios and you're manually testing all of those workflows, manually walking through all of those chats, manually doing all of that, it gets really redundant. So let's just, we'll tweak this test. I'll adjust it because it's kind of, we don't need to set variables. That's just testing. Let's pretend right here we're giving a prompt. So we're actually prompting the GPT. Now remember, if I go back to my suites, every suite in the system is tied to an assistant or a workflow or something. And so in this case, I have an assistant called Cochrane Nissan GPT. It's a custom assistant that I've built out in OpenAI. And so it's tied to that. When we create a brand new suite here, we give it a name, and then it goes and actually pulls the assistants that we have in our account. Now, eventually, it'll allow us to choose between, you know, VoiceFlow or Hidden API, OpenAI or Anthropic or whatever that looks like. We'll tie that in soon enough. Right now, it's just doing OpenAI. So this is tied to a custom assistant in OpenAI. And then when I run this suite, it's going to execute all these tests against that custom assistant. Again, these are contrived because I'm still building up the system. We just, we're doing a pull request on the feature, which is email notifications, which I just implemented. And so on the back end, we can see these 4 tests run, 2 of them pass, 2 of them fail. But if we look at this test could very well be named, let's go back, cancel. I think I can rename it here. We'll find out in a minute. I'm running this locally, so it's being a little slow. Third test, this could be ensure questions about dealership are answered correctly. This could be called this. So this is just a list of questions that make sure that if we're going to ask it, what is the name of the dealership? So here's one question. We send it the prompt. This is the answer we got back, and we make sure that that includes the name. So we could come in here and we could say, edit this test. We'll add another prompt. This one will actually change it to, let's delete this step. Add a step in here and we'll call it prompt. We're going to prompt the same one. It'll use the same thread. What is the phone number? I don't know if I have a phone number programmed in here, so I have no idea what it's going to say. Or we could say, you know, where is the dealership located? Not a really realistic question, but the idea being that we're simulating a conversation or a thread with our assistant, and if it gives us back something, then we can take that and use that to continue on the conversation in an automated way. And then once we get those back, we can make assertions about whether or not the responses we got back were correct or incorrect. And if they're incorrect, we get notified. And the thing that's going to be cool about this, I mean, we do this in browser testing for applications. The company I worked for before was automated browser testing platform. And so this is basically a similar thing just for AI assistance and workflows. So we're sending another prompt, and then we're going to make an assertion. So there's different assertion types. I can assert that the value you get back is equal to something. I can assert that it's not equal. It includes something. It does include. I can make an assertion with JavaScript, and I can make an assertion with ChatGPT. So I can say, okay, the prompt I'm going to send for evaluation is going to say, make sure that the value mentions Cochrane, which is where this dealer is. And then the expected output, expected evaluation. Then I'm going to put the last result message in here. And so now when I run this, save changes, Islaid says, is there any site info I can forward to my co-founder would like to keep up with this? Man, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked that. No. If you follow me, I'll be talking more about this soon because I'm pushing to launch this. I wanted to have this launched at the end of November. We're super, super close. I've literally got, I probably have 4 to 6 hours that I need to put into this. So my assertion failed. I said, where is the dealership located? This is what it gave back. It says, I'm not sure the exact location of Cochrane Descent. So again, this is contrived because this particular agent isn't necessarily set up properly. But that's the idea. And then beyond this, make.com workflows. So if you wanted to trigger a make.com workflow, wait 30 seconds, and then make sure that an email was received or a drive was up, a thing was uploaded somewhere, some particular result. That's the whole idea behind this. It's an automated testing platform specifically for your agents or for your workflows, your chatbots, your assistants, that kind of thing. So we're super close. We're calling it PreFlight. We're hoping to support Anthropic. It's just me and my brother doing this right now. I think we have about, we're bootstrapped. Probably got about 100 hours into this. Most of that was figuring out this whole boilerplate that we're using. Islaid says, looks awesome, by the way. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, no problem. Also might have potential customers for you if you're interested in a seed stage startup. That'd be super great. We're going to, probably what we'll do is open up beta testing. I think that's kind of the way this goes. So what we'll do is we'll do like a private beta, have some folks who are interested in testing out the platform and work out the kinks in the corners and make sure that we're not only performant, we sort of pin down the edge cases and I'm a very firm believer, we're launching a testing product. And this was sort of my stance in my last position, where we were go back there. we were a company that provided a browser testing platform for startups to automate the high-level end-to-end tests for their product. And the very first day that I started on the job at that organization, I made the argument to my bosses, like, we're sort of the last line of defense for our customers. We need to let them know when things go wrong. So we need to be extra good at what we do. We need to be extra good at testing. And sort of, I like to take the same approach with this, where it's like, I've been in software for well over 20 years, and I would rather launch a few days later and have a really good product than launch something broken and scare off all my early customers. And I know that's not the typical startup mentality. That's just sort of my approach. I want to make sure the value is so good, we're solving the problem so well. Oh, last prompt message. That's why I got the variable wrong. Let's try that again. Last prompt message, save changes. Let's run that test again. So yeah, Islate, if you're around still, give me a follow, and I'll be talking about this some more here in the future, and then maybe we can connect. So we'll let this run for a minute. All right, still failed. Yeah, so here we go. This is exactly what we want, right? And my email I just got an email from this. So it says, our first prompt was, we prompted our custom assistant, what was the name of the dealership? And then in the response, we expected the word Cochrane to be in there. So that was correct, right? And then we prompted again, all right, where's the dealership located? The response that came back, I'm going to have to have a sales rep reach out to you. Can I get your name and contact information? And then we used ChatGPT to evaluate this. There's actually a variable in here that I don't expose right now that is a reasoning. So if you use so in the assertion types, you have like assert equals, assert not equals, assert includes, assert not includes, your typical assertions for a test, right? And then we have an assertion that's a GPT assertion, which will actually use ChatGPT to say, all right, here's what we got, and here's a prompt that says what you're looking for, and give us a yes or no. Does this pass or fail? Whether it passes or it fails, we need a reason. We need reasoning behind this. So if we actually go into the database, I don't expose it yet, but there's a reason under the hood here. ChatGPT will have given us a reason as to why this failed. So, but in this particular case, you can see our prompt was make sure that the value mentions Cochrane, and so it doesn't. So we could go in here and tweak the test and say, oh, make sure if we ask our assistant a question that it can't answer, that maybe we have a test. Maybe this is maybe this was the correct response. The assistant should say, hey, I'm going to have someone reach out to you. Can I get your contact information? Like maybe that was the appropriate thing for it to do if it didn't know the answer to a question. So we could make an assertion here in this particular last step. We could say, make sure the AI assistant, in the situation, we're going to give it a question we know it can't answer. And in that scenario, make sure that assistant answers the question with something to the effect of, I need your contact information. I'll have someone reach out to you. Let's actually just tweak that and see if it works. I don't think my actual GPT assistant is reliable enough to probably give us the same answer back. Well, we'll try it. We'll see what happens. So make sure that and then again, with this one, we're asserting with ChatGPT. So this assertion is actually a prompt. We'll say the assistant that we make sure, we'll just say this, make sure that the response we got back mentions or is requesting contact information. We'll just see if that works. I don't think it will. We'll try it. This is all an experiment. We'll just run that test again. So this is the idea. If I was testing my custom GPT right now, my custom assistant, if I was testing my custom assistant or my workflow right now, I'd be having this conversation manually every time. I'd be manually having this conversation every single time. So it failed again. So if we come back in, oh, I see there was a parsing error. Yeah. What do you need, sweetheart? Okay. So I've got a parsing error in here somewhere, so there's obviously something I need to tweak. But that's the idea, that we can start to make our systems more, as we build out more and more agents, as we build out more and more workflows, that we, and as those workflows get more complexity, we make sure that we have a way to model the logic and be able to test that logic and get feedback from that in a meaningful way. So that's the idea. All right, so I think I had a parsing issue. Not sure about the exact. It said, I'll have someone reach out shortly. Expect GPU evaluation to be. So I'll look into this in a minute. What we're actually trying to do is finish my pull request. Yeah. What else do you need?
What are you doing?
I'm streaming.
Oh.
Working on PreFlight. We're not going to go too long here tonight anyway. Thanks everyone who stopped in. Hope you drop a follow if you like what you're seeing. Working on my startup tonight. Hey, Slade. Yeah, no worries. It's good. Yeah, feel free to reach out, and I hope you drop a follow. Yeah, you'll be seeing more of this in the near future here. Once we get dialed in, I'm going to get back to my original task here. I'm going to try and figure out what my brother wants in this pull request. Let's go have another look at that. So he's saying here, between this promise and the one above, pick the one you prefer and make them the same. I think he's talking about the the signature. What line was that one on? Oh, I see. Update, test, execution. Let's go look at that code. I think I changed this on him. Oh no, that's a Boolean. Wait a minute. Let me just double check I'm on the right branch here. Oh yeah, let's do that. I'm on the stable branch. I need to switch over to Slack notifications. Here we go. Yeah, okay, I see what he's talking about. Helps if I'm on the right branch. Between this promise and the one above, update, test, execution, finish. Pick the one you like, he says. Oh, I see, because we've got two different response signatures for that. And on the one, I think we've got, I wonder if we got two different response types. So what he's saying is this one will return the sweet or an error. And this other update, test, execution, let's go have a look at that. Let me turn on word wrap so we can see what we're doing here. There we go. And this returns the sweet complete and an error. That's annoying. These are the kind of refactors I hate. So, which is interesting though, because it should only return one or the other. I wonder why that. Oh, I see. Because it's saying that they're both optional. I think we can do the same thing, honestly. Interesting. Which return format do I prefer? Which signature do I prefer? This is an interesting philosophical discussion. We've got one format that says I'm either going to return this Boolean, this object with a Boolean value, with key value pair, or I'm going to return an error. I feel like this one's a little bit more clear, a little bit more specific. The one above, I feel like, is a little bit misleading in that it's saying, I may optionally return this or optionally return that. So I see what he's saying. My brother's got a keen eye because I never even noticed that. So I think we'll make them like this because this is more clear. It's going to be one or the other, but not optionally both. Yeah, so we'll do that. All right, next puzzle. Refer to the PR comment after that. I think he's commenting about the same thing, so we'll just, I don't think we need to resolve that. I know these don't matter. They are also the default values and don't need to be here at all. Have no fear, remove them. All right, what are you talking about, Dan? I see what you're saying. 463, let's go check that out. I think what he's saying is that we don't need to provide these values because they are the defaults on the defaults on the field. Interesting. Hey, Eclipse, doing good. I'm doing good. You know what I'm doing tonight? I went through some real shenanigans this evening to try and get my stream quality figured out, and I think I got it sorted out. I was doing a stream on my other channel, and this is JavaScript, C#. I got to learn C# one of these days. I got some friends who do in the .NET world. Yeah, that's good. Excellent quality. I'm glad to hear that. I was having this thing where I'm on my Mac and I got pretty good, did like the Wi-Fi and this thing's pretty good, but my router's a ways away and I would get like, 1500, like about 15 megabit, and then it would drop to 400K and then up and then down and up and down. I wasn't sure if it was encoder issues, OBS. I didn't know what was going on. So I dug out all my cables. I dug out my old USB 100 megabit Apple Ethernet adapter and my silly, what are they called? D-Link, Power Link thing that does Wi-Fi, does Ethernet over the power line. So I got about 70 megabit now, which is a fraction of what my MacBook can actually do. But OBS says I'm streaming steadily at 800 kilobits. And yeah, Restream says the same, and it's been pretty steady. So I think that was my problem. I think I was relying on Wi-Fi and it was pooping the bed. Bob, okay, I'm learning programming right now. Python, HTML, CSS, HTML, and CSS are pretty simple. Funny story. I remember when CSS came out. Just to date myself. Just to tell you, just give you an idea how actual old I am. I didn't think much of it at the time. It seemed like an awful lot of work, CSS. We're talking like, what's 99, 2000, something like that. What is this CSS stuff? Turned out it's actually a big deal. You don't put colors in your HTML code anymore. Font color equals. It's not, you don't like that anymore. Python's good. I still use Python lots. I think C#, you probably know it. It should be, just use any languages that interest you and solve problems. I think having a plethora of tools in your tool belt is good. What are we making today? I'm working on my startup. I'm trying to finish a pull request. My brother and I are, I don't know if Clips, if you've seen this one. I'm building a startup for testing workflows and AI assistants and APIs and stuff. And man, if I can get through this pull request, I'm probably about 4 to 6 hours away from like launching our private beta. And I kind of want to get this thing out the door. Because as you can see, I opened this pull request on November 2nd. And my brother just reviewed. That's how much progress we're making on this. I'm still really bullish on our idea. I think it's really great. It's definitely going to solve a lot of my problems. The thing about having a startup is you have to, like, I don't know, like promote it and stuff. That's the hard part. You got to talk about it. You got to market it. You got to explain to people what it does. That takes a lot of time. I just kind of want to see it through because we got about, like, collectively maybe 100 to 150 hours into this, and I just kind of want to see it. Just kind of want to see it out there. So anyway, I'm just poking through my my thing. Yeah, let me show you. So it's a testing framework. So here's an example. What language does every software engineer know? I think you should know a little bit of JavaScript. If you know Python, JavaScript, if you know PHP, if you know a little Ruby, probably the ones, languages that are being used right now, I would just, anything in the top 10. I think PHP is number 10. Anything in the top 10. Get in there and learn 2 or 3 of them to the point where you are proficient. Yeah, if you know JavaScript and PHP, I would use a lot of JavaScript front and back end, and then I would just tie into things like, I mean, you can go a couple different ways. You can go new shiny, right? So you can say, okay, well, I'm going to dive into Rust. I'm going to dive into some of these newer, like strictly typed, maybe if you're interested in mobile, like Flutter, stuff like that. Or like, I don't know, there's no shortage of like PHP, people using PHP. There's still Perl jobs out there. Like there's still, yeah, Go, exactly. Learn some Go because they each have their own specific applications and paradigms. So I think versatility is the new, like I'm a generalist, so I sort of shallow dive into a lot of things. I know a little bit of everything, and I'm good at a lot of things to a degree, and I sort of learn things on demand. I'm a generalist. To my own discredit, I'm really bad at reading documentation, so I will typically dive into something and poke around and click and try to intuit my way through things until I have to go read the docs, sometimes to a fault. I found it really hard to find the right match when it came to work. Like I never had struggled to find work in the industry necessarily, but finding the right match when like React was really hot and you know, in the 2018, 2019, 2020, I had a great job, so I wasn't really looking, but there was a lot of stuff out there where it's like all of the organizations that were hiring were looking for something very, very specific, like we need somebody who's like a pro at this thing. And lots of times it was like React or something, right? With the emergence of stuff like, you know, Cursor and what's that one called? Sailwind, whatever the other one is. I see Copilot just released their new editor. With all these AI editors coming out now, I can get back into Java and written Java in 20 years, right? I mean, I can read it. I can understand what the code's doing, but I'm not very effective in Java because I don't have that windsurfer. Thank you. I don't have the headspace around like all of the libraries and the, you know, Spring Boot and all of that stuff. Like I don't have the headspace for that because I haven't been in it. With Cursor, I can jump into a Java project and do stuff. You know, it's not going to be perfect, right? Because Claude and GPT or whatever else you're using aren't perfect. But if you understand logic, these tools make these things more accessible to me, and they actually expand my reach as a generalist, right? Yeah. Hacks Mump says, I have a ton of apps in Mern, which is a React and Node, Mongo, and Express, Mean, serverless, so Angular, JavaScript, TypeScript. Next, want to learn something KN. I'm not sure what that means. I'm just tying into, I put off learning React for a long time. Oh, new. I get you. Learn something new. Go's on my list. You know what else also on my list? Ruby. I never learned Ruby. Back in the day when Django came out, I was actually the choice between Python and Ruby. So again, I'm dating myself a little bit. 2007, 2008, somewhere around there. And I picked Django because They had this shiny new branch in Django called 0.91 new forms admin. It was this shiny back-end admin editor thing where you could input data, and Ruby didn't have that, so I ended up going with Python. Bob asks, what are you building? Explain in really simple terms. Let's jump over there because I was explaining that too. Actually, that was a question that Eclipse had too, so let's have a look. Okay, this is my working on my startup. It's called PreFlight. Hoping to launch maybe in the new year, maybe in January. Let's say January we're going to launch this. The idea is that when you create a suite in our system, you have test suites and then tests. And right now, when you create a suite, you can give it a name. We're tied to OpenAI right now, but we're going to include Anthropic. We're going to include like voice flow, like Gemini, and then just like APIs. So you can just either test an assistant, or you can test a workflow. So here it's pulled all of my my assistants from my OpenAPI, my custom assistants. And then I name the suite. So if I go into a suite and look at that suite, it's tied to the assistant. So this one is tied to my assistant named Cochrane Nissan GPT. So presumably, I've got my assistant open in my other window here, and go to my playground, and I've got this open here, and I'm adjusting my prompts and trying to make this assistant better. And as I'm adjusting my prompts and trying to make my assistant better, I've got a bunch of tests I want to run against that. So this test. We're just pretending for a minute that I'm testing this assistant, and this assistant is for a car dealer. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to prompt this with a user prompt, because I'm building a chatbot, we'll say. So I'm going to ask the assistant, what is the name of the dealership? And it's going to give me a response. And then I'm going to put that response into an assertion, and I'm going to say this response needs to include the word Cochrane. So it says, yeah, the name of the dealership is Cochrane Nissan, so this passed. So then I continue the conversation. I say, okay, where's the dealership located? And it says, I'm not sure about the location. This step failed. I got to go in and tweak that. But presumably, basically, we would be able to carry on a long last prompt. I forgot to save that. So be able to carry on a running conversation with that in a deterministic way, where what I can do is I can build out different scenarios of conversations that I want to have with this assistant for the purposes of my chatbot or something like that, and test to ensure that my assistant is trained to correctly respond under specific scenarios. Because we all know that AI is non-deterministic, and so we do what we now call, prompt engineering, which is just sort of like the instructions we give the chatbot. We do that to try and make the chat to the assistant or whatever we're working with more deterministic. And so if you have a very simple chatbot, if you just have a simple bot that's like, you put the website documentation in the thing and it's just answering FAQ questions, it's probably going to do a good job for the most part. But in this case, I'm working with automotive, and it needs to be right. It needs to give me the right price. It needs to give me the right deals. It must be deterministic. So as we build out our RAG queries and we build out that chatbot, we may have 10 or 15 user paths that our end user can go through that conversation with the bot. And we might have workflows for each of those. Say we're using voice flow or something like that. As we build out complexity with our chatbot, I don't want to be manually testing every single one of those conversations every single time. I don't want to manually test the conversation each time, because that's what I'm doing right now. I'm manually saying, hey, what color is this, blah, blah, blah. What's the price on this thing? I want to automate that process so that I know when it fails. If I go in and tweak that prompt and I've got 15 paths that I'm testing to make sure that, hey, if we get to this point of the conversation and the user says something to this effect. I want my custom agent to connect that person with a salesperson, or I want a salesperson to jump in. I want a particular response. Under these circumstances, the chatbot must respond in this way. And then I want to be able to test that in an automated fashion. So here we can see we sent one question. What's the name of the dealership? It said the name of the dealership is this. And then our assertion said, make sure that this word, Cochrane, is in this response. So that passed. Then we asked another question. We said, where's the dealership located? And if we look at this assertion down here, we're actually using ChatGPT to make this assertion. We're saying, okay, here's what we got back. Make sure that the response we got back is requesting contact information. And so it passed. And so we can build out more deterministic workflows within our complex chatbots or something. In the case of a make.com or a Zapier workflow, we're not testing a chatbot per se, or maybe there's AI in there somewhere, right? Maybe our workflow is categorizing information. And we say, okay, if we run this data through, it should categorize it as blue. And if we run this data through, we should categorize it as red. And so the question is, what are you doing to make sure that your workflows are doing the correct thing every time, or as close to every time as possible? Clips Chaser says, what's the end goal with this? To find the ideal prompt that runs perfectly? It's to allow us to fine-tune the prompts and understand if we're getting better or worse in complex scenarios. Because you can imagine that I'm not just going to have one test here. If I'm testing a chatbot, I might have 15 different tests in here, each walking the conversation through an exact path and coming to an exact result. Because I want, if the user interacts with the chatbot this way, I want it to send the user to the service department. If they walk through this way, I want the chatbot to send pricing. If they walk through this way, I want the chatbot to request contact information. If they go through this way and the user gets frustrated, I want the chatbot to signal that a real person needs to step into the conversation, right? I want those to be deterministic and work. And so I'm tweaking workflows and prompts to fine-tune all of that and improve it. But if I'm making changes, the question is, how do I know if this is getting better or if it's getting worse? If anybody on the live right now, anybody's listening to the stream right now, if you're building systems, if you're interested in software and interested in all this stuff, you must be asking yourself, how do I test this? Because testing isn't about finding bugs. Tests don't find bugs. Your users find bugs. Tests are to make sure that your bugs don't exist after you find them. When you make changes in the future, as you make changes to your systems in the future, the old bugs that you squashed don't come back. That's what tests are for. If you don't have those, you end up in a scenario where you're playing whack-a-mole, and the cost of making changes becomes exponential. It becomes very difficult to make changes in systems like that, especially if they're in production. Got a bunch of questions I'm going to catch up on here. Hey, Bob, thanks for that. I hope so. We're ahead of our time because testing AI systems is probably another afterthought that's 2 or 3 years in the future. Bob asks, so I'm assuming that you're optimistic about AI and its development. I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. Like, it's been, 2 years? OpenAI has been out for 2 years now. ChatGPT 3.5 was launched 2 years ago. I use it every day. Lots of people don't use it, but I don't see it going away. Cambay says, what languages do you know? Are we talking programming languages? Hey, Coda. Brandon, Survey. Does Survey do similar functionality? That'd be cool. I did some searching. I didn't find anything. Programming languages. Well, the very first programming language I learned, I'm not even actually sure. What is it even called? It is called, the very first programming language I ever learned was for the TRS-80. I'm dating myself. And I don't even know what it was called. It was BASIC. Program BASIC on the TRS-80 in 1986. I was 8 years old, so now you know how old I am. And let's see, after that, I did Turbo Pascal in high school. I learned ActionScript 2 and 3, 1, 2, and 3. Let's see, after that, my next language was PHP. I worked on that for a while. I worked on Java, J2ME. Worked on that for a while. Obviously, you know, CSS, HTML. We're talking early 2000s now. Let's see. Then I learned Python in about 2007. Pascal, the language, Turbo Pascal. We're talking mid-90s. Turbo Pascal 7 was cool. In high school, when I was supposed to be doing programming assignments, I was writing Star Trek Choose Your Own Adventures in Pascal. Let me see. Then it was, about 07, I started learning Python. It was a choice between Python and Ruby, and I chose Python because of Django. And then this funny, a little bit of JavaScript in there. JavaScript wasn't a serious language until about, 2010? Node.js came out? Well, I mean, I guess it kind of was because we were using, like, jQuery was a thing. But then Node.js came out, and then I got really, I dove headfirst into JavaScript. And learned all about, prototype inheritance and all that kind of stuff. And this is like pre-Bootstrap and all of that. And I got into Knockout in the front end, which is super cool. I've only ever done the tiniest little bit of C, man, because I'm not like pointers. I never got pointers. I get it now, but I didn't then. And it was all magical to me. And then, so the 10s were, mostly I did infrastructure in the 10s. So then all of the DevOpsy type stuff you'd expect, systems, lots of Python, lots of JavaScript. Now I primarily work in JavaScript. Go's on my list. I do maintenance work in PHP nowadays. Tiny little bit of Java every once in a while. I still use Python pretty much every day. I use JavaScript every day. I'm learning React right now. And because I always avoided React, I've learned everything but. I like the underdogs, so I used Vue. I used Aurelia, Knockout, Backbone, Marionette, Angular 1, used lots of. And then right before Angular 2 came out, there was a guy I forget his name now, and he was the author of Knockout. He was on the Angular 2 team, and like the week before Angular 2 launched, he split and launched his own framework called Aurelia.js. Played with Svelte. I play with everything. I try to touch lots of stuff. Just because, stuff that lets me build stuff. Let's see, punch cards. I'm not sure what the question is there, Coda. Brandon says, what do you think about super AI and if it will harm us? I think the thing about AI is we're worried about what AI is going to do to us, but we don't worry about what we're doing to ourselves. So I think that AI is a reflection of our intent societally. And malicious people will use tools to do malicious things. There's an open source library called DSPY. That's about the same thing you are doing. Let's look it up. Might mean the framework for programming, not prompting. Cool. Yeah. Cool. Allows you to iterate fast on building modular AI systems and algorithms for optimizing. It's like a test system. We're going to see lots of stuff. I'm not, and then I see there's academic citation stuff in there. So that's cool. The thing about this is if I do my job correctly, PreFlight will be more accessible than something like that. So I'm not building the system for programmers per se. My target user will be low code, no code users, power users, people who are getting into AI right now. As they start to struggle building more advanced systems, they're not going to go for something like this because they're not really probably doing programming. They could. And the thing is that we should see, and we do need tools, lots of tools in this space. We will need all of those tools. These markets are huge. There's even markets for like, if you think like make.com and Zapier have the market share, and there's still tons of new systems coming out all the time, that are offering workflow solutions because the markets are huge, right? Once you find an audience and you just start doing some marketing and you get some traction and you build from there, like I'm not worried about there being stuff out there. I think there should be more stuff out there. But my target market specifically is going to be people who want to make sure that their make.com workflow is doing the right thing every time. The test is going to trigger the workflow, wait for 30 seconds, make sure this email showed up somewhere, right? So then you know when it doesn't work. Because that's a real thing. If you spend any time in the software industry maintaining systems, like not building stuff, not, doing UI stuff or whatever, like infrastructure, monitoring, DevOps systems management type stuff, you know that everything fails eventually. And so you get ahead of that by knowing, like reducing your, things like tail latencies and errors and all that kind of stuff. But then you monitor everything. You have to know before your customers do that something went down. And then if you get good at it, then you can build reactive systems that if this goes down, there's redundancy or whatever that looks like. And so I'm not worried about there being other systems out there because any of us that are thinking about testing AI right now from a consumer standpoint, we're ahead of the curve. Okay. Cambase says, started with C and then went into Python and MATLAB, OpenCV, now just having fun learning. I use Python a lot every day. I use Jupyter notebooks. Oh, I see. Pascal, like the case. I still don't quite understand the reference there. The real life 10x engineer. Bob says, deep and unique take about AI. Is it deep? Maybe. I think we're very distractible, and we need to. I think I'd like to see a world where we spend more time collaborating on things and making sure people are able to succeed in the environment in which they exist. AI should do those things. And I'm afraid that AI will probably be used more likely for exploitation and to create more of a gap between folks with like tons of money and folks who are struggling. There's more opportunity right now than ever, in my opinion, to like kind of get into some kind of business that has a solid value prop for people and can generate some revenue. Like, I don't think you need to be making 6 figures a month. I don't need to make that kind of money. Because I don't need a Lambo. I don't need a crazy car. I don't need all that stuff. I want my kids to be healthy. I want them to be good people. I don't want to have to worry about my bills. And we don't even vacation or anything, right? I just want to live a happy life. And then I want to see people around me succeed and not stress, right? Because in my opinion, and y'all don't have, my opinion is, about as good as this toothpick. But you can have all of that stuff. I've made lots of money, and I mean, it just gives you more stress. It just gives you gray. It makes your beard gray. It doesn't, fancy cars nice for a bit, but then it kind of goes away, and then you're like, now what? Okay, more, I guess, right? And then there's just no end to it. And they say money can't buy happiness. There's just a ton of wisdom in those words. Coda says AI is too primitive right now. I think you're right. Yeah, we're going to see a lot of changes in a lot of different areas. At the same time, I haven't tried GPT Pro. I've heard good things about it. It's one of those things where it's like there's so much hype around stuff, so it's kind of like it's probably really good, but they're already talking about synthesizing data to continue to train these. It's no wonder they want, voice mode and all these other things. Like I'm sure all of the AI providers right now would be super happy to just have you feed your entire life into their models so they have something to consume and try and make things better. Because, like even O1, it's good. Like, yeah, it's pretty good, but it's not perfect. We're gonna hit the point. If we haven't hit the point of diminishing returns yet, like we will soon, I think. Eclipse says people who run AI automation agencies, they will be your biggest customers. I think so. That's sort of who I'm targeting. Power users who know they have problems and they want to fix them. What do you need? Okay, I'll be right out. I'm just about done. We're having some conversations about AI. It's solstice here, so we're gonna have a late night. And
Where are you even streaming to?
this is on my other TikTok. We're talking about engineering and AI because it's fun. It's fun to speculate. The question was, so Eclipse was asking folks if my target audience was, what am I doing here? I'm just going to have to give you bonus time because I'll give you like 20 minutes or something. Okay, go. That's my target audience. It's not engineers. It's not to say that, because engineers could just do this themselves. And the thing about engineers is lots of times we will just be like, oh, I can write that myself. I'm not going to pay someone else to do it. And we'll spend, 3 months and, just pretend for a second that you're an engineer and let's say you make $50 an hour. So you're going to spend 300 hours of your time rather than pay $20 a month for something. So that's not my target audience. Hey, you know what? I've been streaming for like an hour and my bit rate is solid. About 12.5 megabit. I'm happy because that was a real problem earlier. Right on. Okay. Let's try and do one more thing on this pull request before I shut it down. We almost got to the third comment. So, show us the product. Oh, yeah, I did say that. Working on my... Okay, so this is what I'm working on. I have startup ideas every day. And I've started on a few of them. But this is the one I want to see. Hey, Eclipse, thanks for stopping by, man. Appreciate it. Appreciate you coming out every time. We'll see you on the next one. All right, Ricky. So this is my product here. It's called PreFlight. And I'm getting into the consumer AI testing space. So the idea being that you've built out a chatbot. You have a test suite that's tied to your chatbot. So this one's for a car dealership called Cochrane Nissan. And the idea being that you can basically simulate a conversation with your chatbot, or it could be a workflow. It's just a testing framework that integrates with other systems. So you can simulate a conversation with your system in an automated way and then make assertions against that system to say, I gave you this, what did you give me back? Is it correct or incorrect? And if it's incorrect, then you fail and notify somebody. And the whole purpose behind this is that as you build out more and more complex workflows, as you build up more sophisticated bots or workflows, then as you're making tweaks and refinements internally in those, and you have a bunch of conditions you need to make sure that they work, you have an automated way to do that. That's what the product is. So we'll include API testing at some point. Right now, we've sort of got, when you create a brand new suite, it lets you pick, it'll pull down my assistants and OpenAI, but we'll have Anthropic and Gemini, and we'll have like voice flow and then APIs that you can tie into and run workflows and make assertions and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, so I'm just doing some live streaming I'm trying to get, what do you call it? Use the live stream as an excuse to actually get this pull request closed from my brother. It's me and my brother building out this startup. And I opened this pull request at the beginning of November, and he commented on it a week ago. So you could see that's how fast we're moving here. Ken Zock says, hey, I have lots of startup ideas as well. What's your benchmark to launch those ideas? What's my benchmark in terms of like how do I determine whether it's good enough to launch? Is that what you mean? I think for me, that kind of changes day to day, because some days I'm like, man, usually if I have a startup idea, if I have an idea for a startup, it's usually because I need it. Like this one here I'm showing you today, PreFlight. This is actually for me, I'm actually building out. This is the third time I've tried to build a reliable website chatbot for a car dealer. I've got one that's really close, and now I'm trying to dial this in my startup because I have about, like I said, 15 different flows through that chatbot that I need to test out. I need to make sure that they work. You make a tweak, run them again. Make a tweak, run it again. You need to know, is the chatbot getting worse or is it getting better as we make these changes? And then you think about, okay, now that we know this is getting better, are we adding on more things over here? We think of, oh, we should add a test for this. We should add a test for that. And then once it's up and running, we'll monitor that, maybe run it once a day, see how it performs. So then we know. And then the thing about it is their inventory changes every month, every week, every day, right? So do we need to tweak our prompts? Do we need to tweak our workflows? The data changing? We need to be able to know if that bot's doing what it's supposed to do. So as far as startup ideas, what's your benchmark to launch those and the time it takes? I want to, for me, I guess it's like, I'm kind of in this place right now where I'm like, if you have an idea and it seems like something that, there's a lot of micro startups right now. So if you can just get like an idea where you can get people to put $5 a month, $10 a month, $20 a month into your idea, you don't need a ton of people. And I see folks doing that where they're, especially with TikTok now, like, man, look at this. We got 13 people on this live. Like, I'm nobody, but there's 13 of y'all sitting here listening to me blab about startups, right? And I've already tonight, this is the first time I've talked about PreFlight, but I think there's at least two people on the chat tonight that were like, I will message you. This looks interesting. I want to hear more about it. I think that's the key to success nowadays. So if you can get something out the door in less than 100 hours, less than 50 hours, in 20 hours, some of my ideas are really simple, and the hardest part is you got to set up Stripe. You got to set up your newsletter thing. You got to set up your waiting list. You got to set up, like, there's so much time in all of that stuff. Building the idea is actually pretty quick. I mean, like I said, I got 100 hours into this, and probably only about 30 of those hours is building the startup. All those other hours is like learning the framework, filling out all the form, getting Stripe connected, getting the, like just all the blah, 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 the back end stuff. That's annoying, right? And then fine tuning a little bit. And then, all right, what does the website look like? Okay, now we need documentation. Okay, now we need this. Like, how can you minimize that? But my brother and I bought this boilerplate, and I got probably 3 more. Now that I've been through this once, and I know the stuff I need to do, I can set the next one up twice as fast. So my next idea, I have an idea for a startup. It's actually, I don't know if anybody will pay for it. You can tell me. There's 12 of us. I got an idea for a startup because I watch a lot of YouTube. So let's just go to this pixel art YouTube video. Whoops, that was really loud. Sorry about that. I'm going to shut that volume off. That probably just broke all your phones. So I've got this, let me just go to my extensions here. I just started building this on a stream the other day. I'm going to turn on this one. It's called the YouTube video button. But here's what it is. It's a browser extension. I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to make sure the volume's turned off. It's a tab muted because I don't want to do that again. Mute the site. I'm going to reload that tab. Now you see how that button showed up in the top corner there? That red button? That's just a browser extension. And when I click on that, I haven't decided what I want it to do yet, but it's going to send the URL of this video to a backend system that's going to pull the transcript with the timestamps, and it's going to put it into a custom assistant. And somewhere in that workflow, it's going to categorize this video. So on one hand, I can have it do it automatically, or on the other hand, I can have it manually. And I haven't decided what I want that to look like yet. Because here's my problem. If I go to my YouTube history, I watch 1,000 YouTube videos a month. Like, I might not be exaggerating. It's a lot. I watch a lot of YouTube videos. And at least once a week or twice a week, I'm in a conversation with somebody where I'm like, man, I just watched a YouTube video about this, and I think it was this person, and I think this is what they were saying. And I'll be damned if I could go back and find that video. I'll scroll through my YouTube history for half an hour and still not find that stupid video. I want all of my YouTube videos that I watch, if they're within certain categories, to automatically get indexed with the timestamps into a custom GPT or multiple, so I can turn around and asking a question. Hey, I'm sure I watched this video on marketing last week. Somebody was talking about this topic, and it will send me the exact timestamp. Or if there's 4 of them, it'll send me 4 timestamps. Hey, this person talked about this here, and then they talked about it here, and here's another video about the same thing over here. And then I can just find it. And so if I have that browser extension running, and it just does that anytime I watch a YouTube video, then I could probably also do that anytime I watch a TikTok video, or anytime I watch a Facebook reel, right? I could start, just pull that information, put it into a thing so I could find it later. So then my question to you, all 12 of you on the live, is that worth $10 a month? $20 a month? Like, what would you pay for that? Is that useful to you? What would make that next level, right? So back to your question, Ken, I could probably build that out in like a prototype. I could prototype that in about 20 hours, like a good prototype. I could prototype in about 3 hours, but like, again, tie in all the stuff, get the website, the back end, everything dialed in, staging, production, probably 20, 25 hours, right? And I probably will, but that's just one of the other 14 startup ideas I got going on, right? I did the same thing on TikTok. We open up TikTok. I'll turn on my other extension. I did this one live the other week. Let me mute this site. No. Oh, no, I got my desktop shut off anyway. That's fine. Okay. So I don't break any phones. If we go to TikTok, if it opens, and if I click on this video or go into a video specifically, I have to be specifically in a video. It doesn't work on this page, the For You page. If I go here and I'll click on this dude's video, and then this little red button shows up. It says summarize video. And if I click on that video, it sends it off to a back-end system. It's a little too slow. It's going to take about another 4 or 5 seconds, but it's going to pop a summary in on the right-hand side any second now. And the idea was that I would want to know before I actually watched an entire video whether or not I wanted to watch the whole video. And so you can see this has summarized it for me. The Genesis project, collaboration between 20 research labs, blah, 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 key takeaways, bonus, the advancement may lead towards superintelligence. So then I can decide, do I want to watch the rest of the video or not? Do I want to favorite it? Like, I just want a summary. Again, I'm trying to use AI to consume content more, especially as I start to do, more content creation and use AI more and get more ideas. We just consume, I consume so much content, and I favorite lots of stuff. Man, I've got so many favorites. I would build an AI, a chat GPT or something, just to go through my favorites and find the ones that I should go back and look at. I got so many of them, right? So these are the kinds of ideas that I'm having all the time. I got tons more, but the one I think that has long-term lasting value is my free PreFlight project here. And again, I don't have a ton of hours into this. If I can put another 10 or 12 into that, I should be able to get the private beta launched. I've just got so much stuff going on, including live streaming and making TikTok videos. Hey, everyone that's come out, we're up to 13. This is cool. If you like, talking about AI, I'm not up on all of the AI news, though some cool stuff. I like innovating with AI to make my life easier. I work with businesses to help them systemize some of their stuff and change their thinking about how they're using AI in their business or automations more specifically. I'm very much a person that's like, let's talk about automating first, and then we'll sprinkle some AI in there. We don't lead with AI. Let's talk about automation first, because AI is the little helper, but automation is the heavy lifter. That's typically what I do. All right. Hey, PTI Greater Toronto, fellow Canadian. Thanks for jumping on the live. I said I was going to try and get through this pull request. Another question on the live here. What is the best agent AI tools I can utilize for automating multiple tasks with AI? What's your task? There's lots. You could use something like LangChain if you're into programming, or if you want something like agentic no code online like Cassidy. There's lots of tools and frameworks. What I would recommend for you is, if you're not sure which one to use, pick one, start using it, find out what you like, try it for a day or two, see how far you get, then pick another one, try to do the same thing or something similar. Because what works for me might not work for you based on my experiences. And I can make recommendations. I can recommend something to you and you fight with it for days and days and days and give up on AI. So experiment is my opinion, is my recommendation to you. All right. Hey, Olivia. Just trying to get through this pull request. I promise you it's not that exciting. Working on some code and chatting about AI. I think I'm going to go for just a few more minutes and then shut it down. I've been streaming since, I've got a couple of TikTok channels, and I've been streaming since mid-afternoon and fighting with my OBS all day. I think I got it dialed in. I'm pretty happy. We've been holding steady at about 13 megabit streaming rate here. I was told that the live is sharp and snappy. Hey, Ben. Yeah, I think I sent you a reply on LinkedIn. Pretty sure. Maddie says, what works best for extracting data from multiple Excel spreadsheets using AI? Do you have to extract at the same time, or can they be done individually within the same workflow? Are you combining the data? The way I will typically do this is get the Excel into, say, a OneDrive. And then how many rows are you talking? 10 rows, 100 rows, 1,000 rows? There's a lot of different ways you can approach that. Yeah, if you want to combine the data. So, 100 rows, it's not bad. 100 rows each. In theory, you could do that with just like a simple make.com. I would get the sheets into OneDrive or a Google Sheet, and then have a node that extracts the data from here, and then one extracts the data from there. The trick you're going to have is that you're going to have multiple output bundles from each. So finding a way to target the different bundles in the same operation is going to be probably tricky. I would have to experiment with that to see how. I think what I would probably do is, do the rows coincide with each other? Like if you have 104 rows in one and 104 rows in the other, and like row 3 in each one is going to be, like you need to combine row 3 with row 3, row 4 with row 4. I think the way I would do that is I would reference the sheet. If that was the case, I would work with an index where you could say, get row 1 from here and then get row 1 from there and then put them together. If they're not, if they're mixed data that you're trying to get together from two different sheets, I don't know that like an automated workflow tool like make.com, you're probably going to fight with it. I would venture more into programming language. I would use a Jupyter notebook, or maybe in theory you could get that data into like an Airtable or something, or maybe search in a way where you could find the data you wanted. But yeah, your use case is starting to get a little bit complex if you're needing to mix and match data from spreadsheets. All right. I don't know your name, but the comment is getting data from API, processing them, asking another API about it, processing them again, and reporting. This is the task sample for agent AI. Yeah, I'm not even sure if you need an agent. You could just use probably just use like a make.com workflow for that. Pull one API, processing them, depending how much data there is. Is it just a single thing you're processing, or from the first API you're getting a bunch of things? And then if you, for each of those things, you need to talk about another API, you can still do that in make.com. That's more sequential workflow kind of stuff. The only time when your Zapier or make.com doesn't make sense is when you get into like hundreds of rows or even thousands. A lot of the stuff that I do when I'm working with, like I'll scrape data, I've got 10,000 reviews or something for 15 different companies. And I need to run them all through, say, ChatGPT to categorize them or something like that. And then that just doesn't make sense because in ChatGPT, you only get so many operations for your $20 or whatever. So you're just going to burn through that. And that's per operation. So if you got a workflow that's got a whole bunch of different nodes, your 10,000 rows is going to turn into 50,000 operations. You're just going to burn through all your credits. So in the case where something's sequential, if it's just a little bit of data, you need to pull it from here, do some processing, pull another thing from there, combine them, process and report. Yeah. That's a perfect workflow example for something like make.com. Make sure if you want to drop a follow, we can, next time I do a live, we'll talk about make.com and maybe build out some sample scenarios to give everyone some ideas. Because if you're brand new to automation, I've got a few tutorials in my profile as well. So definitely go check those out. And usually I'm doing stuff during the week. I do stuff typically about automation. I try to do tutorials that help make automation more approachable and understandable. I'll apologize in advance for us nerds in the tech industry. We get overly technical about things sometimes, and we try to make things sound harder and fancier than they are, which is a mistake because AI and some of these workflow tools can still be pretty complicated, but some of it should be just really accessible and easy. Like there's no reason you shouldn't be able to just get into it and just start using it and make it do something useful in your life. And then if you're in a situation where you can turn around and offer that value to maybe a business or an adjacent organization to wherever you're at and start to benefit with a little extra revenue or relationships or whatever that looks like, that's never been more accessible than now to sort of get in. And don't get me wrong, I don't buy into that whole, you're going to make 6 figures a month selling AI or whatever and all the hype. Like, of course it's hype because we're still at the very beginning of the AI thing. But the thing is that even me as an engineer, as a software engineer, AI makes my life easier because it makes things more accessible. I'm not great at CSS. I hate writing it. I hate, I got to go look up all the stuff. I haven't kept up with all of the 1,000,006 things that you can do with AI, or it's not AI, with CSS and animations and transforms, all that. So there's so much stuff you can do with CSS now. I just never kept up with it. It's just advanced so much. But I don't need to. I know what I want. I know what I want from the CSS. And I can just be like, hey, Claude, this is what I want. It goes, and there it is. And it works or it doesn't. So it takes me a few tries. It's like, that's what I want. Can you make this wider? Can you make this blue? Can you make this? I don't want that shadow. And it just tweak, 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 tweak. And then eventually have what I want. And then I can scan the CSS and be like, that's cool. I didn't know it could do that. So I'm learning at the same time. Right? And you got to keep in mind, I've been working with CSS for 24 years since it came out. Not the whole time, obviously, because I'd be a lot better than I am. But I'm still learning CSS today as a software engineer, and AI is helping with that. Right? Jupyter Notebooks, another example. If you don't know what Jupyter Notebooks are, they're a data science tool where you can use a little bit of Python, a little bit of code to explore data and build graphs and do lots of fun stuff. And it uses a library that, man, I've tried so many times over the years to wrap my head around. It's called, one's called NumPy, which I kind of get. And the other one's called Pandas. And then there's Matplotlib, which does your graphs. And man, those graphs, like I could just never quite, like, I would fight with them for hours just to get a simple bar graph because my head just won't get it. But ChatGPT gets it. And I'm just like, I want a graph that does this. I want to contrast it with that. I want this on the x-axis, that on the y-axis. And it gives me my graph, and it's beautiful. And I feel like a data scientist. I'm not. I don't mean to insult data scientists because I'm not. But it makes it makes it accessible for me because I know what I want. I know how to get it. I just don't have to write the code for it, which is beautiful. Frimps says, am I the only one who loves CSS more than Bootstrap? That's funny. I'm working on a project in Bootstrap right now for a client. And I'm like, man, it's been a long time. I like Tailwind. Tailwind is nice. Bootstrap's okay. Man, but it's like we're writing apps like it's 2008, 2006 or whatever, a while ago. We're writing apps like it's HTML and it's Bootstrap. And I'm like, man, I appreciate React so much right now. Trying to find ways in this old architecture to modularize some of the stuff that I'm trying to do. Yeah, challenging. Abed says, and it does the changes happily. Absolutely. Yeah, I don't have to type. And you know what? I've been in the computer long enough. I've got RSI, my arms. If I type too long, I start to get sore. My fingers tingle at the end of a long week, right? So I got my mic hooked up, and I just talk to my computer all day, and it's beautiful. It does the typing. It does the coding. I do the debugging. My RSI doesn't bug me anymore, mostly ever. Ryan with Knob says, union types are an anti-pattern. Change my mind. Maybe not tonight. I'm not sure what you're looking for. I got lots of things I'll argue about, but I'm not really sure what you want. Sorry, Ryan. You won't find much of a debate here. Hey, Dallas. Holy cow. I can't believe there's 23 people in this live. Look, seriously, I'm nobody. I'm not even sure what you're doing here. Elaborate, Ryan. Maybe I'll it's late, man. It's like 12:30 in the morning here. It's the solstice. It's a really long night. Union types. Help me out. What are you talking about here? Hello, Wanderer. Welcome to the live. Anon says, show how the voice to type works. Oh, man, that's easy. Well, I'm on a Mac. I'm sure Windows does this too. So let's just pull up like ChatGPT or something. So we can just say to ChatGPT, I push this button. Can you see that? Bump that up. It goes boop. And it said poop. That's funny. And I start to talk into the computer, and, you know, this is old school tech. I find that the Mac is garbage at dictation half the time. iPhone's pretty good. Mac, for whatever reason, Mac OS is garbage. That's it. That's all there is to it. And so when I'm coding, jump over to my editor. I use Cursor, so which I'm pretty happy with right now. I see that Copilot just launched a new version of whatever, but let's say I wanted to tweak this whatever, right? Then it's just Command K, and then same thing. I push my little dictation button. Boop. I want this to do something else. That's it. That's how I program all day long. I got to remember to shut the dictation thing off because it'll be tight. It'll be doing stuff or whatever, and I'll start talking to my wife, and then it'll start dictating my conversation. But that's how I program these days. It writes the code. I check the code, and then I'm like, yeah, cool. That works or it doesn't. Is that a good enough demo, Anon? Anon Forge, are you actually a smith? Now I'm curious. Wanderer says, is Mac better than PC? I've heard the government has a backdoor. All right, if you want to go there, the government, the NSA has a backdoor into everything, as far as I'm concerned. There's not really much that's secure. You know, your phones and everything else. I've even heard that like RSA's not secure. You know, Snowden and all that. Hard to say. I think there's a whole conversation there. I don't think we have time for tonight. I like the Mac hardware, and I switched to it for reasons of, because I spent so much time on the computer, especially when I was younger, and I would get these work laptops, thinking back to like 2013, 2014, when we had like these laptops that work was providing for us, and they were like, were they Dells? I don't know what they were. They kind of looked sort of like a Mac back then. And I think Mac, somewhere around then, MacBook Air, the first MacBook Air had come out. And one of my colleagues bought an Air. He went out and bought one. And it was slick. It was nice. It was light. It was small. It was beautiful. The hardware was nice. The keyboard was nice. The trackpad was nice. Everything was nice about it. And it was light. And if you took these work laptops that they gave us, when you open the clamshell, like the lid would flex. The whole thing would flex and it'd make that creaking sound that plastic makes when you flex it. And I'm like, man, these two laptops cost the same money. And one of them is like solid and very pleasant to work on. And this other one, I'm scared to open it some days. So I worked on Linux systems. Like I used Ubuntu and different flavors of Linux for a long time in the aughts. And then Windows systems when I had to. But then I made the switch to my first Mac. And once I got used to it, I've had a Mac ever since. I find it intuitive. It just works. I'm just used to it now. It took me a long time to get used to it, but like I just like the way it works. I like the way the gestures work. Yeah, it just makes sense for me nowadays. And you can run, even Parallels can run Windows 11 now, so you can technically run Windows on your Mac. I still have a Windows machine that I use for audio production. I have a home studio, and I do mix engineering, so I still use Windows for that. I just about started streaming on Windows because TikTok Studio is only available on Windows. But good news, Restream announced, yesterday, today? Like recently, Restream now is available for TikTok again. So I'm streaming from OBS on my Mac using Restream, and it's wonderful. I think my stream delay is about, 3 seconds? And yeah, the newer Macs, I have a 16-inch MacBook Pro, and it's heavy. It's heavier. My wife's got the Mac, the big 15 Mac Air, because she goes back and forth. And again, we're incorporated, so we get to buy them through our company. But it wasn't that much money. It was not souped out or whatever. But yeah, it was worth it. Compared to, she had like an old Chromebook a long time ago, and that thing just like it literally fell apart. So yeah. Just checking myself out on TikTok Live here. That is pretty crisp. That looks really good. Cool. Marth Killer says, you rather have the new 14 or the 16? I've got a 16 right now. It's an M1. I think mine is a 2021. Let me check. About this Mac. It is a 32 gig M1 Pro 2021. And it's I don't know, this thing's 3 years old. It's still killer. I got a 4K monitor up top. I've got desktops. I got about 14 cursors open. By the time I got about 15 browsers and about 150 tabs and everything else, I start to run out of RAM once I get Docker going and whatever. But this MacBook it's amazing. Anon Forge, you can't do much on a Chromebook anyway. I had the MacBook Pro 2017, went back to Windows laptop. I had the Pro 2017. I was happy with it. Not the keyboard, though. I had the little, what do you call that, touch-sensitive thing on the whatever. I didn't mind it, but it was kind of, the keyboard was jank. What are you designing? I am actually trying to get off this live. I've been streaming all day. I'm kind of hooked on streaming. I'm actually trying to get this pull request. I got my startup is for testing chatbots. Am I going to shut that title off so I can stop talking at some point and get off the stream? So, but I will answer your question. The mastermind says, what are you designing? I'm working on my startup. It's for testing chatbots and workflows. So the idea being that you can automate the process of sending a prompt. So I've got this chatbot that's trained on a dealership. And I can say, what's the name of the dealership? And it gives me a response. And then I can assert that an assertion is a way of saying it must be this. If it's not this, fail and notify someone. So it makes an assertion here that says, make sure that the response includes the word Cochrane, which is where this dealership is located. Then we send another message back. Where's the dealership located? And we make an assertion. Instead of doing an assertion this time that is a comparison, we do an assertion using ChatGPT, and we send a prompt in and we send the response in. And the prompt is, make sure that what we got back is, requesting some information. And so it's a way of, as we build out more complex automations and more complex chatbots or GPT assistants or whatever that looks like, as our workflows and our assistants get more complex, and we have different scenarios that we need to make sure are correct. Because it's not just good enough when you build a chatbot. It's not just good enough that it's correct once. If you need to go in there and make changes to a prompt, adjust the workflow, fix a problem, whatever that looks like, the problem is you got to go back and test all of those user journeys again. Because if you don't, your users are going to test them. They're going to find your bugs. You're going to have a bad time. If you got one chatbot, whatever. But if you're in the business of making chatbots, you need to make sure they work, right? Things are changing. In the case of dealership, their inventory changes all the time, so you're updating all that information. You need to make sure that things are correct. So the idea behind this is that you can get more and more deterministic about your workflows or your assistants. If the user goes down this path and hits this point, the chatbot needs to respond in this way. If it goes down this point and this happens, make sure that, they involve a person. Did you run out of time? So ask your mom for more time.
She's currently doing something else.
Okay, so you'll wait then. I'll be out in a minute. I'm in the middle of something. Matt Farmer says, production AI is so hard, people don't understand. 100%. That's the thing. It's intrinsically non-deterministic. Hey, somebody sent me stuff. What is that? It looks like I get my old guy goggles on. I still can't tell what it is. Thank you for sending that. I don't know what it is.
But
It looks super cool. So sorry, back to Matt's comment here. Production AI is so hard. 100%. It absolutely is. And the thing is that the people who are selling AI will have you believe anything. Like it was like, it's amazing. It'll butter your bread. It'll bake cake for you. It'll wash your car. It'll clean your toilet, right? Like we're bought in because we want it to be true maybe. But like if you're actually, it's like any other production system. If you're actually managing this in production, it's hard. So you must test it. Ken says, how many hours does it take to build it? I'm less than 100 hours. And most of that is tinkering with administrative stuff and not actually writing code. I've probably got less than 30 hours worth of code into this. A couple weekends. You can write stuff incredibly fast. I don't write code anymore. We just talked about that. Because if I write too much code, I got non-diagnosed repetitive stress in my arms. And so if I type too much, if I'm at the computer too much, like my fingers go tingly. So I talk to Claude all day. That's what I do. Chris says, what are we building? I'm building a system for testing workflows and chatbots. And, I'm trying to get through this pull request. This is where our startup is at. I opened this pull request on November 2nd, and my brother responded to it. a week ago. So that's how fast we're moving. We'll get there. I probably got about, I think I can 8 or 10 more hours. I can get our private beta going here. Yeah. All right. Advent of code. Advent of code? I've heard that before. What does that mean? I got to look that up. Advent of code. It looks like a conference. Annual set of Christmas-themed computer programming challenges. Nope. Nope, not that. Looks cool, though. I haven't been in a programming challenge forever. No, but I move too slow for programming challenges. I would fail miserably at, but that's interesting. When I was younger, I used to get involved in that kind of stuff. Now this is just my own startup. I'm trying to get out the door. And we haven't really done much. I think we dealt with 2 comments on the pull request, and we've just been chatting. Matt says, you see the new O3 model? Negative. Is that part of the 12 days of Open AI-mas? I chat. O3 reasoning model. Interesting. Yep, I'll play with it. O3 mini. I'll play with anything. That's incredible. I need to build some data scraping bots and link it to some email automation. I do a ton of data scraping. I do a ton of data scraping usually with Jupyter notebooks, Python, because it's usually like lots and lots of stuff. Actually, I have a new favorite tool called Bright. What is it called? Bright Data. It's got a bunch of stuff. You need reviews or comments, or they got a whole bunch of like pre-built scrapers that work good for a lot of use cases. Yeah, I do a ton of scraping. Need to build some scraping bots. What exactly are you scraping, Chris? Matt says, beats ARC AGI test, 1500 per prompt, beat ARC AGI releases sometime next year. That's pretty nuts. Yeah, that's wild. I'll have to test it out. Is it open to users on the pro account, on the paid account, or do you need to be on a particular tier? More models. Doesn't look like I have access to it yet. I'll come back to that. Yeah, let me know what you're scraping there, Chris. I do a lot of scraping. Let me pull up a notebook. I like to, before I jump off, I'll just show you some of the stuff I'm doing. Usually do this for, well, here's the one I did was social media. So I scraped data from, what was this? 7 or 8 large e-commerce platform providers. And actually, this is the graph I was trying to come up with. So this is about 6,500 social media posts. If we go back a little bit, back. So this is a Jupyter notebook. It's Python based. And I wanted to see, I was looking for something that would show me nicely sort of like engagement data. Engagement isn't necessarily everything, but it's what we got. So these are the big platform providers. This is their posting frequency. We get into some of these and start looking at some of the data. It's fairly interesting. But this graph here was the one that I was most interested in coming up with. And again, this is me sort of pretending I'm a data scientist. I'm not, but I like to pretend, and Cursor helps me with that. So what this is basically is there's 2 lines here, where the bar graph is like the amount of content. So basically I scraped it's about 6,500 social media posts across these 7 or 8 e-commerce platform providers. And I wanted to know, can we find out what content categories they're posting and what the engagement is like across those categories? So that's this exact graph right here. As you can see across the bottom, the little pink bar on the bottom is like how much content they're posting in all of those different categories on social media. And then left to right, the darker line is like the engagement that they're getting for each of those categories. And that's not to say that this big pink bar in the middle here is the educational content. It's not to say that that educational content isn't valuable. It's just interesting. The entertaining stuff on the left's got the highest engagement, which I find kind of fun. And then we get deeper into some of the data to be like, all right, let's go down to the one of these other. If we start to dive into the categories a little bit more, start to understand what are the categories across platforms, what is the engagement, some of these graphs, right? We're like, okay, this is a similar view again, right? We've got all of these top level categories in our heat map here, and we see this one really dark one. So like there was a ton of the product demonstration stuff on LinkedIn, I guess, is doing fairly well. And again, here's another one based on the post type, so images. This is actually really interesting because we can see two things here. The image and the short form content are doing fairly consistently. I think both of those are actually Instagram. And so I do breakdowns. I don't think it's in this one particular one. Business people like word clouds, I think. I don't know. So I did a couple of those. Geez, what else is in this? This is sort of category breakdown by each of the companies. So again, when I come at data, when I'm looking at data, I'm like, I'm not sure what I'm looking for. I just have a question and a thesis, right? I'm like, I think this is what I'm looking for, but can I find proof of that in here somewhere? The rest of these graphs are uninteresting. Let me see if there's another one. Extraction. Let's look at big commerce. This might tell us something. There might not be anything interesting in here. There are 0 graphs in this. Oh, there's one there. Sorry, I'm dragging you through all my notebooks. There are some interesting graphs. It's not in here. That's too bad. Yeah, I don't actually know where it is now. I do know that I do have... oh, it's this generic one, I bet. Here it is. This is the one I wanted to show. Oh, I have some comments. Matt says, how long have you been doing TikTok? For this account, for my business, not long, couple months. I didn't start taking it really seriously until actually just fairly recently. I had one video kind of go viral for my little account. It went way more than viral enough. Hit about 75,000. I was only about a dozen videos in and it really took off. And I turned it off because it was a bit too much. Yeah. Is this public? No, this is for a client. Need to scrape public databases on a daily basis for probate court information. Interesting. Anyway, the reason I got into this is I wanted to see, this is for one particular provider. So I'm looking at one platform. This is their posts over time. This is their posts over time by platform. So this is the stuff I find interesting because we can see they've been posting on Facebook all this time. It was really high back in 21. It's going down, 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 down. They're posting kind of sort of consistently on Instagram, and then they stopped and they started doing LinkedIn. And then here's the categories over time. I don't know if there's anything interesting there, maybe. This I find super interesting because if we actually go down and look in, let me see if I have a heat map in here. It's not the one. Yeah, maybe. It wasn't Intershop, was another one. I found that, and actually, no, we can actually see it here too. This one really dark box on LinkedIn, something behind the scenes has a ton of engagement. It's making this Instagram column look really pale. But actually, if we rooted out this outlier, this Instagram column would actually be fairly dark. And so the interesting thing about that is if we come back up to this graph, you just have to take my word for that for a minute. If we come back up to this graph, what's really interesting, and the thing that I found across all of the providers, or most of the providers, is they're posting a ton of content on Facebook. You can see these blue dots. That's Facebook, the scatter plot. And they're getting kind of nothing for engagement across the board. They're getting actually fairly consistent engagement across their Instagram, which for some reason they stopped doing at the beginning of 2024, and Facebook. So this company stopped posting on both. And then they started putting stuff into LinkedIn. And so I just find it's interesting. And then what I'll do is I'll take this data and, yeah, I am also busy. I'll take this data and I'll use it to inform a GPT or a custom assistant on, to give a company ideas about what they could be posting, right? This is what did well for your competitors. So similar ideas, right, is what you should focus on, because social media is kind of everything right now. Okay, Derek says, how do you know what websites you can scrape data without legal trouble? Good question. I have no idea. I think the entire internet operates on scraping. I think OpenAI's entire business model operates on scraping the internet. So I think the biggest thing is, what are you using it for? If you are scraping somebody's data and selling it, and actually there's companies that do that. They scrape, like if you look at some of these, you can go buy data sets from LinkedIn. You can go buy data sets on e-commerce information. You can buy data sets on customer reviews. Like, I don't think the only people I know of that are going to sue you, actually sue the pants off you tomorrow if you scrape their data, is realtors. 100%. They're vicious about protecting what happens with their data. But if it's on the internet, it's on the public internet, it's in ChatGPT, you know that. So I wouldn't worry about it. Just don't like blatantly sell there. Don't be like scrape somebody's website and then make it your own. Like, don't do that. Facebook will sue you. My co-founder had a legal battle with them. That's interesting. Yeah, but he made a SaaS. Was the SaaS scraping Facebook? A non-forged said, I would imagine it's a bit of a gray area. I think it's 100% gray. I think it's always been a gray area, scraping data. They have to prove you scraped them. But I guarantee you, like, everybody's scraping everybody. And like, case in point, OpenAI scraped the entire internet. Like, I'm surprised we don't see more lawsuits. I'm surprised we don't see like GitHub or Stack Overflow suing OpenAI for using their data to train the GPT models. Like, I mean, they use people's artwork and stuff. Like, there's going to be more legal stuff. But for the stuff that I'm doing, I'm not publishing any of this data. I'm not selling it. I'm pulling it in. There's no way the scraping activities could be tied back to me necessarily without, I don't know, subpoenas and stuff. It's probably never going to happen. But yeah, I'm not openly selling the data. We're just using it to inform our decisions about the business. Matt, I'd love to hear more about that. Facebook will sue you about your co-founder. I'd love to hear more about that. Omar says, what's this we're seeing on screen? Oh, we were just looking at some graphs. Let's go back to a more interesting graph. I think the other one we were looking at was way more interesting. This one here. I just scraped a whole bunch of social media posting from a bunch of e-commerce platform providers just to see what was performing. Oh, I see. Matt says, this was 4 years ago before they had API access. Yeah. Yeah, the stuff I'm doing is so tiny. And there's literally like companies out there, their business model is to provide scraping services to these third-party companies. They wouldn't exist if you couldn't do it. I mean, they probably fight legal battles, I'm sure, but it's like, for small stuff like this, I wouldn't worry about it. Anon says, do you think the future of AI will be restrained by law? Absolutely. Especially within the art and design space. I don't necessarily know what's going to happen regarding AI and laws in at least the next 4 years in the United States, because I don't know that it's kind of a crapshoot. I don't know which way that'll go. over time, though, in the same way that crypto was completely unregulated at the beginning, and now we're seeing more and more, as we see more and more regulation, we're seeing more and more buy-in from the big players and stuff, institutions. AI might be a little harder. It might be a little harder to regulate some of the AI stuff. But yeah, definitely from a copyright perspective, I thought I saw something that there was a copyright infringement lawsuit a while ago that got lost. I would have thought that if you used AI, if you trained AI on somebody's art, you should absolutely be able to sue the pants off them. But I'm not a legal expert, and these are complicated discussions and legal matters. And so it opens up a can of worms where if I can train an AI model on a bunch of people's art and not infringe on their copyright, then that opens a lot of doors, because that means I can train AI models on anything and not infringe on their copyright. It's really interesting, like music, art, all that stuff. And then at that point, does anybody really own anything? It's interesting. And Non-Forge says, how do you scrape data like this? I use third-party providers to go out and get me the data, and then I just pull it into my notebooks, and you can find them. You just pay money. 6,500 social media posts across 4 or 5 platforms cost me $10, something like that. I think it was 10 posts for a penny, something like that. Or maybe it was a penny each. Can't remember. It was cheap, super cheap. And I didn't even pay for it. My client did. I just sent them the bill. Matt says, I don't think so. My followers don't agree. It's not exactly saving the art. It's learning based off it. Yeah, I'm not an expert on the subject, so I had an opinion. I had thought we were going to get to a place where, and I was probably completely wrong about this, but I had assumed that we would get to a place where we would need to be using something like a blockchain or some kind of analysis tool to be able to determine if a piece of art was generated. Could we trace that back to the source pieces of artwork so that we could either, attribute or credit or even like financially compensate the original artists? And I'd made the argument that the amount of data and the computation required in order to do that would be cost prohibitive. That's kind of where I thought things were going to go. I'm 100% actually not even sure where we're at with the whole issue. So maybe I just shouldn't talk about it. Is this recorded somewhere to review after? I'm going to start pulling my lives down and putting them on YouTube. I hear that's a good thing to do. So, yeah, follow up with me on that one. Truth Seeker, does anyone really own an idea once it's out there? We're getting a little philosophical now. Maybe not. Anonforge says, which you can feed designs to copy the style from. Yeah. Matt, it's a black box. I know, that's the problem, right? You should do a video on this. It would crush. Yeah, interesting. I'd have to do some research because I can't speak intelligently on it right now. I made that prediction a while ago when ChatGPT first came out and was first generating images, and I was like, oh man, because I do understand copyright law. Like if you just steal somebody's shit and use it and don't have a license under Canadian law, and I think American law too, but under Canada, legal systems are generally like innocent until proven guilty. But in the copyright sense, if you infringe on somebody's copyright, you have to prove that you didn't, and the fines start generally at $250,000. So like copyright law is a real thing, and so I got to go research this again because I thought somebody tried to sue OpenAI or somebody tried to sue one of these whatever copyright and they lost. I don't remember. I'll have to go look at it. Yeah, Matt, I'm in West Kelowna right now. I'm actually from Central Alberta, but I'm in West Kelowna. Yeah, so we're both up past our bedtime. Yeah, Omar, follow up with me. Leave a DM or something. I'm definitely going to pull down my lives. I got to start. YouTube's a beast. I posted a few videos. I'm still figuring out the social media thing. So far, I've had the best luck on TikTok because TikTok's cool. It's amazing how quickly you can build like a community. And then as soon as you can start going live, you can start having interesting conversations. Every time I go on live and I try to do something or build something, we just end up having these conversations. It's kind of fun. And then inevitably somebody be like, hey, can I jump on? And you just talk more. It's right. An opportunity to connect with people, which is like, we all need more of, right? Yeah, that's great, Omar. That's good inspiration. I'll take that to heart and start, make sure I get a copy of my lives and get them on. I always just assume nobody wants to watch these things, but maybe they do. I don't know. Maybe they do. If you want to come back and watch this live, I will put it on YouTube for you. We'll make it a deal. Matt says, Kelowna's awesome. Technically in West Vancouver. Man, Vancouver scares me. It's so busy. I don't go down there if I don't have to. I fly in and fly out. That's it. And usually on layover. But, I mean, I like Vancouver. I'd like to visit more, but yeah, big cities. I'm not a city person. Yeah. Hey, Emery says, I'm a Kelowna too. That's crazy. Right on. Yeah, we're just over on the west side, right up from the superstore. I like it here. I love the mountains. Weather's weird. I don't know where y'all are at, but man, it's December 21st. We still have green grass and snow. Hey, Omar. Greetings from fellow enthusiast from Mexico. Right on. Good to meet you, Omar. I went to Mexico a long time ago. High school. We went to the peninsula. We landed in San Jose del Cabo International Airport, went down to La Paz on a yacht. It was amazing. 2 weeks. Yeah. Right on. Oh, man. Yeah, see, I couldn't do that. In Vancouver, Matt says we had rain for the last 3 months. That's the thing. The weirdest thing, every once in a while the sun comes out, but in Edmonton, where I'm from central Alberta. We spent 6 years in Edmonton before this, 7 actually. And in winter in Edmonton, most days, there's snow on the ground and the sun's out. It's bright, it's beautiful. Days are short, but it's bright. And it's cold. As long as there's snow on the ground, I don't mind the cold. Here, it's cold, there's no snow, it's raining, and it's overcast because we're in the valley. So we only see the sun once a week, if that. And it's just dark for months. And I think Vancouver, you're worse. You're down there, and the humidity. I couldn't survive. At least the humidity's low up here. Like even though it's dark and it rains and stuff, it's still a little bit lower humidity. I go to Vancouver, I freeze to death. Yeah, too much. Omar says, I'm on the frontier with Texas. Pretty close to the USA. That's cool. Been to Texas once. Went to Austin a few years ago. It's a pretty cool country. Ping pong, Stockholm, Sweden. Right on. Snow just came this last night. Now it's white outside. I love that. Winter's not correct unless there's snow on the ground. Let's just be honest. I lived in Calgary. Beautiful city. You see the mountains. Windy. And the problem with Calgary is if you live in Calgary in January, it's brown because the wind comes in and all the snow just disappears. And then it's cold and brown for like 3-4 months. Finally, the end of May, it starts to turn green. Never again. I'm not doing Calgary again. Edmonton's beautiful. And, but it's cold. Hey, Matt, it's great to meet you. I'm jumping off. I've been trying to jump off the stream for an hour, but it's awesome. Hope to see you again. I appreciate the follow, and we'll be doing more. We'll see you on the next one. I appreciate everybody that's on the stream. We're still at 15 people. It's blowing my mind. I've only done like a handful of streams on this count, and I love this is great. I love the conversations. TikTok is super fun, and yeah, I hope you'll come back. Emery, you too. Maybe we'll run into each other sometime. AI meetup or something like that. Who knows? But I appreciate you coming in for the live. I am going to jump off. It's 1 o'clock. It's so past my bedtime. I am not the only reason I'm awake is because we're still chatting. But you too are, Omar. Great to meet you as well. We'll see you on the next one. And yeah, Matt, let's do that. Reach out. Let's have a chat. Maybe we'll jump on, have a convo on the next one. Chat about AI. That'll be fantastic. Okay, everyone, I'm going to jump off. Have a great night. I appreciate everybody for coming out. And yeah, we'll see you on the next one. Happy holidays. Have a good evening. Oh, one more question. I'll get this one in quick. Ken, can you use Redis and async cache in Node.js? I don't see why not. Can you put a pin in that? Put a pin in that, Ken. Bring that back to the next one. Redis and async cache. Let me think on that. It's 1 a.m. My brain's not firing. We'll come back to that question. Hope to see you on the next one, Ken. Everybody have a good night. I'm going to shut down the stream. And happy holidays. Hope you all get a nice break.